Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to Lodi Academy. In this video, we will continue Oracle Table Partitioning Concept Part 3, Indexing. Indexing on partitioned tables. Indexes on partitioned tables can either be non-partitioned or partitioned. As with partitioned tables, partitioned indexes improve manageability, availability, performance and scalability. They can either be partitioned independently as global indexes or automatically linked to a table's partitioning method, which is called local indexes. In general, you should use global indexes for OLTP applications and local indexes for data warehousing or decision support systems, applications, DSS applications. Decisions on the type of partitioned indexes to use. The type of partitioned indexes to use should be chosen after reviewing various factors. When deciding what kind of partitioned index to use, you should consider the following guidelines in this order. Number one, if the table partitioning column is a subset of the index keys, then use a local index. If this is the case, then you are finished. If this is not the case, then continue to guideline 2. Number 2, if the index is unique and does not include the partitioning key columns, then use a global index. If this is the case, then you are finished. Otherwise, continue to guideline 3. You are finished means no need to continue to number 3. Number 3, if your priority is manageability, then consider a local index. If this is the case, then you are finished, mean it's okay. If this is not the case, continue to guideline 4. Number 4, if the application is an OLTP type and users need quick response times, then use a global index. If the application is DSS type means decision support system, and users are more interested in throughput, then use a local index. Local partitioning indexes. Local partitioned indexes are easier to manage than other types of partitioned indexes. They also offer greater availability and are common in DSS environments. The reason for this is equipartitioning. Each partition of a local index is associated with exactly one partition of the table. This functionality enables Oracle to automatically keep the index partitions synchronized with the table partitions and makes each table index pair independent. Any actions that make one partition's data invalid or unavailable only affect a single partition. Local partitioned indexes support more availability when they are partition or sub-partition maintenance operations on the table. Local partitioning indexes. A type of index called a local non-prefixed index is very useful for historical databases. In this type of index, the partitioning is not on the left prefix of the index columns. You cannot explicitly add a partition to a local index. Instead, new partitions are added to local indexes only when you add a partition to the underlying table. Likewise, you cannot explicitly drop a partition from a local index. Instead, local index partitions are dropped only when you drop a partition from the underlying table. A local index can be unique. However, in order for a local index to be unique, the partitioning key of the table must be part of the index's key columns. Global Range partition indexes. Global range partition indexes are flexible in that the degree of partitioning and the partitioning key are independent from the table's partitioning method. The highest partition of a global index must have a partition bound all of the whose values are max value. This ensures that all rows in the underlying table can be represented in the index. Global prefixed indexes can be unique or non-unique. You cannot add a partition to a global index because the highest partition always has a partition bound of max value. To add a new highest partition, use the alter index split partition statement. If a global index partition is empty, you can explicitly drop it by issuing the alter index drop partition statement. If a global index partition contains data, dropping the partition causes the next highest partition to be marked unusable. You cannot drop the highest partition in a global index. Global hash partition indexes. Global hash partition indexes improve performance by spreading out contention when the index is monotonically growing. In other words, most of the index insertions occur only on the right edge of an index, which is uniformly spread across n hash partitions for a global hash partitioned index. Maintenance of global partition indexes. The maintenance of global partition indexes is also introduced here. By default, the following operations on partitions on a heap organized table mark all global indexes as unusable. These you can see the commands copy, add, coalesce, drop, exchange, merge, move, split, truncate. These all are operations you can do on partitions. Definitely, if you want to know about the exact command, you can search on the internet or you can search in the documentation. You can find easily. Here we are discussing only about the concept. These indexes can be maintained by appending the clause update indexes to the SQL statements for the operation. Note, however, that appending the update indexes clause maintains the global indexes as part of the partition maintenance operation, potentially elongating the runtime of the operation and increasing the resource requirements. The two advantages to maintain global indexes are the index remains available and online throughout the operation, hence no other applications are affected by this operation. The index doesn't have to be rebuilt after the operation. The global index maintenance for drop and truncate is implemented as metadata only operations. Note, this feature is supported only for heap organized tables. Global non-partitioned indexes behave just like local non-partitioned indexes. Miscellaneous information about creating indexes on partition tables. You can create bitmap indexes on partition tables with some restrictions. Bitmap indexes must be local to the partitioned table. They cannot be global indexes. Global indexes can be unique. Local indexes can only be unique if the partitioning key is a part of the index key. Partial indexes for partition tables. You can create local and global indexes on a subset of the partitions of a table, enabling more flexibility in index creation. This feature is supported using a default table indexing property When a table is created or altered, a default indexing property can be specified for the table or its partitions. The table indexing property is only considered for partial indexes. When an index is created as partial on a table, local indexes, an index partition is created usable if indexing is turned on for the table partition and unusable otherwise. You can override this behavior by specifying usable or unusable at the index or index partition level. Global indexes includes only those partitions for which indexing is turned on and exclude the others. This feature is not supported for unique indexes or for indexes used for enforcing unique constraints. Full is the default if neither full nor partial is specified. By default, any index is created as full index, which decouples the index from the table indexing property. The indexing clause may also be specified at the partition and subpartition levels. The following SQL DDL creates a table with these items. Partition ord underscore p1 and ord underscore p3 are included in all partial global indexes. Local index partitions for index creates partial corresponding to the above two table partitions are created usable by default. Other partitions are excluded from all partial global indexes and created unusable in local indexes for indexes created partial. Here you can see the command which can be used to create the index partitions. Here you can see these are the columns defined, here constraints defined, and then indexing partition by range, order date, partition here defined what partition value is less than this, indexing on, partition or P2 its partitioning is indexing is off, part 3 indexing is on. So you can see the example here. A local or partial index can be created to follow the table indexing properties of the previous SQL example by specification of the indexing partial clause. Create, as you can see the command create index, index name on table and then column name, global indexing partial. The orders underscore order underscore total GIDX, this is the index name. Index is created to index only those partitions that have indexing on and excludes the remaining partitions. See, now you understand in the command for some we defined indexing off, for some we defined indexing on. So here global indexing partial, it will apply to only those which have indexing on. Updates to views include the following. Table indexing property, the column indexing is added to star underscore part underscore tables, tab partitions and tab subpartitions views. Star means here you can use DBA, all or user. This column has one of the two values on or off, specifying indexing on or indexing off. Partial global indexes as an index level property, a new column indexing is added to the users underscore indexes view. This column can be set to full or partial. Partial global index optimization, the column orphaned underscore entries is added to the dictionary views, user indexes and user IND partitions to represent if a global index partition contains stale entries owing to deferred index maintenance during drop or truncate partition or modify partition indexing off. The column can have one of the following values. Yes, uh, it means the index or partition contains orphaned entries. No, the index partition does not contain any orphaned entries. There are few items to consider when partitioning indexes on composite partitions. When using partition indexes on composite partitions, note the following. Sub-partitioned indexes are always local and stored with the table sub-partition by default. Table space can be specified at either index or index sub-partition levels. So I hope you understand that, and thanks for listening. Now I will come up with some new topic. Till then, goodbye. Take care. Keep subscribing, please. No one is subscribing. 90%, 97% who are listening, they are not subscribed. I will be grateful if you subscribe. It will be help to understand people are listening and following up with my channel. Thanks. Bye.